Thank you so much, Representative Fitzgerald. I remember that we had you just a few months ago before when you were running for state rep, and you actually made it. So congratulations on that. And we're happy to have you here virtually, but still here with us. So thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely. I appreciate the invitation and look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah. So I just wanted to start off and touch base on the whole gun bill situation that was introduced about a week and a half ago, following the terrible Michigan State University shooting, where we know that 3 students passed away. So there was a bill that was introduced and it had 3 different elements on it. And it was basically the safe storage, universal background checks, and the red flags. So I was just wondering if you could probably explain a little bit of how that process would look like, especially for the red flags. How would that kind of look like? And what does that mean?
Yeah, you got a lot there that I'd love to talk to you just a little bit about how the Michigan State Legislature works, right? We have what is called a bicameral situation where we have both the Senate and the House. And the bills that you're referring to were actually introduced in the Senate, so not in the body that I serve in. However, the same bill, similar laws that would effectively do safe storage, that would do red flag laws, or what are known as extreme risk protection orders, and extreme risk protection orders, safe storage, and
it was a universal background check.
Universal background checks, I apologize. That all of those, what that's going to do is now be introduced in the House as well. So we're going to have both a set of bills in the Senate and the House. And as we're going through to introduce these, what is really going to be looked at again are universal background checks, ensuring that people who have firearms have their backgrounds checked to ensure that they are responsible to own those or qualified to own those. They don't have felony backgrounds or anything of that nature. The extreme risk protection orders, those are actually bills that would allow for someone who may be a threat to themselves or others to have their firearms potentially taken by law enforcement. That's done through a judicial process. That's done by a judge. That order can be appealed. But if somebody is a threat to themselves or others, we do want to see a situation where in our communities, people can speak up and say, this is a situation where we believe that harm could come to somebody through firearms violence, again, either themselves or others. And the safe storage bills are very important to me because the safe storage of a firearm is one of the highest responsibilities of a firearms owner. You need to respect that firearm, ensure that it's not ending up in the hands of somebody who should not be. And beyond that, we also need to make sure that firearms in the home are secured and not creating an environment where an accidental discharge may occur, where young hands or curious hands may end up on that firearm and inadvertently create a situation where they themselves are harmed or killed or others are. And if those firearms are stored securely in the home, they aren't leaving the home without the knowledge of the firearms owner. Those are the 3 prongs to this bill package, and I think are very much common sense reforms that we can implement here in Michigan while respecting responsible firearms owners, and again, ensuring that our communities, our schools, our workplaces remain safe.
Yeah. I wanted to dive in a little bit with the extreme protection risk order. How would law enforcement kind of know or go about kind of taking that firearm from the person? Like would somebody just have to report that this person seems a little like going through mental health issues and they have a firearm? I'm concerned. Would that kind of look like?
That may be an example of that, yes. Those documents are going before a judge, as I said. And so people who are concerned about, somebody with a vendetta, right? Or they just want to stick it to somebody and have their guns taken away. These are things that are going to be subject to the court of law. We are making sure that there are protections in place so that there are not potentially unintended consequences that law-abiding citizens would have their firearms taken without just cause. And that's where the extreme risk protection orders really come into play. It's ensuring that when there is a valid threat reviewed by the judicial system, that those persons may have their firearms temporarily taken away from them.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. We weren't sure of how that was going to happen, like if people were going to be put on a list or something, but that makes more sense for us. And also with the universal background checks, would that also include mental health illnesses, like previous mental health illnesses, or people going into mental health facilities?
I will look into that. Really, the intent of the universal background checks is to ensure that when the sale of a firearm occurs, that the purchaser is going through a background check, that they don't have a violent history of felony issues. When you purchase a firearm, you go through a background check, but there are loopholes to that, whether it be private sale or gun shows, there are loopholes to that. But this would ensure that every firearm purchase, the purchaser and the soon-to-be owner of that firearm is having a background check done to ensure that that those firearms aren't ending up in the hands of people who aren't capable or aren't healthy enough to responsibly handle that firearm, or have a history where that might checker or might flag an issue with their owning a firearm. We really want to be respectful of the Second Amendment. We understand that is something that is in our Constitution and in our Bill of Rights, right? We want to be respectful of that while also addressing situations that have created what I call an active shooter generation, a generation of people who see firearms violence in their neighborhoods. And we want to be respectful of the Second Amendment while also prioritizing the health and safety of our communities and especially our young people.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for explaining all of that. We definitely do have more clarity since the beginning when we first heard of these different bills, but thank you so much for that. My question is, how likely do you think this whole thing would pass, or is there any necessity to get support from the Republican Party as well, or how does that all work?
I will say this: I hope our Republican partners are advocates of these bills. We are going through a robust hearing process. We are going through robust debate. This debate has also taken place in public forums for decades. And so this is not an issue where, a new legislature came in and these bills are being rushed through. These are conversations that have occurred over a long time, and these bills have continued to develop over those times. And we do see in other states that have enacted similar or the same legislation, an improvement in firearms safety and the reduction of firearms violence in those states. I do hope that our Republican partners come to support these bill packages. I hope that they can also inspire greater debate by voicing their concerns, but also not just standing there to say we don't support these, but to maybe provide alternatives should they have them. I think that there are a number of great ideas that are being proposed from both sides, but we need to now bring that into a solutions-based environment where we're not just talking about putting down other people's ideas, but rather coming to a solution where, again, we have an environment where there's debate, there's dialogue, there are committee hearings that are going on, and we do have that here. With the introduction of these bills, there will be House hearings on these. And I encourage people to reach out to their legislators like myself, voice their concerns or their thoughts on these issues in support of or against to ensure that we are being representative of our communities.
Yeah. I definitely do understand that. I know that at this point, I believe that both parties, or regardless of what party the person represents, I think we just have to make a change that kind of protects and prevents more tragedies that we've been seeing daily. So thank you so much for kind of helping us out with that specific topic. I wanted to move into the tax credit situation and the whole checks situation. We were following that very closely because we knew that, or we felt that it was possibly going to be passed that many Michigan residents that pay taxes would receive $180, kind of like a relief. But we recently found out that that's not happening. So we kind of wanted to know why it's not happening, or what kind of played into that decision.
Yeah. So I'm going to jump back to where I started by saying we have this bicameral situation, the House and the Senate. And in the House, we passed that bill and were able to ask for what is called immediate effect. And as part of the bill language, it said that we needed to have immediate effect to issue those $180 checks. We did that in the House, and then the bill goes over to the Senate to be affirmed and voted on in that legislative body as well. And it did pass the Senate, but it didn't pass with immediate effect. And the language said that if it doesn't have immediate effect, the $180 checks, which is a part of this, it's called House Bill 4001, that's its number, that it wouldn't be, those checks would not be issued if it didn't receive immediate effect. Now, because of that, yes, the $180 of immediate relief are not going to be reaching taxpayers across Michigan. However, there are many other great things in that bill package that are going to positively impact our communities here back home, including the pension tax repeal. So those who have a pension, those are going to no longer be taxed by the state of Michigan. And then we also have the earned income tax credit, which has been increased. So more people are actually going to be able to keep their money because they are able to now claim 30% of the federal EITC or earned income tax credit on their state filings. And so we have, again, moved forward with making sure that more Michigan taxpayers are keeping their money. I just want to point out 500,000 households are going to be impacted by that pension tax repeal, and 700,000 households in Michigan are going to benefit from that earned income tax credit expansion. And so, yes, the third leg of this, that immediate $180 did not go into effect, but those other two portions did. And that's really important for people here in the 83rd and in West Michigan.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know a lot of people, maybe me personally as well, we were looking forward to that check, but we completely understand.
Well, I will tell you that if you are disappointed by that decision, you can reach out to your senators to make sure that they know you are upset that that $180 did not get put along to you. The House of Representatives, we did our job very, very well. And I'm sure that your senators would be interested in hearing from you about why that didn't pass and why those $180 checks aren't coming to you. And again, I will tell you that this passed the Senate with 100% Democratic support.
My question was, is there a necessity to get support from the Republicans? Is that needed to pass certain laws, or is there some that don't really require them to vote in favor for?
So immediate effect in the House does not require more than a majority vote to essentially be the case from the House. In the Senate, however, it does require a 2/3 vote. And so the Senate, which you may want to have Senator Brinks on to talk about some of these topics as well, because their chamber functions a little bit different than the House. That would require, by the rules, that would require Republican support. And so again, it does create a balance where we need to work with our partners across the aisle. I think that is a positive thing when we can create opportunities for collaboration. But when it's standing in the way of providing immediate relief to our taxpayers here in Michigan, that's not a good thing, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, because my next question was about the licenses that we've all the Hispanic community has been waiting for too. But now I understand that maybe in the Senate that's where it probably might fluctuate the chances of passing. But I wanted to like your opinion on that as well.
I'd love to talk to you about the Drive Safe package. We have sponsors of those bills in the House. Those are being worked on. They have continued to be worked on. Clearly, we've been working very fast on a number of issues. You know, we needed to get our tax package across. We are working very fast on the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act expansion here in the state of Michigan. We've worked very fast on firearms legislation, and we are working very fast on the Drive Safe package too. We actually haven't even been in session for 60 days yet. Our first day of session was January 10th. And so we aren't even 60 days into this legislative session yet, and we've made a lot of progress. And in speaking with those bill sponsors, I expect that the Drive Safe package will actually be introduced here, I would say, by the end of the month. So we'll have those bills introduced. Those bills will go through that hearing process, and then those will again reach the floor of the House and the Senate. And to again have immediate effect, it does require a 2/3 vote. But we also need to make sure that this is simply getting across the finish line. This is long overdue, and I am a huge supporter of this bill package. I think we have wonderful champions who are coming to the table, and I have been a supporter of that as well. And I'm having conversations with my Republican colleagues about how this is not just an issue for districts like the 83rd, but it is an issue also in Gaylord and in Traverse City and in Benton Harbor and Detroit, yes, but in those rural areas that I mentioned too. And so this is something that is going to benefit our entire state. It's going to benefit our economy. It's going to benefit people's lives and the quality of life that people have in Michigan. And so you can count on my support on those bill packages.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my next question. I didn't understand why that would happen, but I know that in the past, like you mentioned, the licenses for all hasn't even made it to like the first step. So I think there will definitely be some progress this year with all of you. So
not even this year, this month.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. Because I know that that's something that we have all been waiting for. Many families have been impacted, and yeah, that's just the whole situation with that.
And one final point about that, you're right. There has been a lot of lead up to this, right? There has been a lot of lead up and a lot of great community discussion about why we want this to occur. And in these first couple of months, we're also making sure that this bill is in a position to go to a hearing, have issues heard, and then to pass with recommendation from that respective committee. And that's what the sponsors have been working on, is ensuring that many parties have been brought into this discussion so that it is a very good, strong bill, and they've done a great job of that. And again, I believe that they're going to be introducing at the very latest the end of the month. And that is something to very much look forward to. And I expect that we'll be doing a lot of great work on that here even before the summer comes.
Yeah, we will definitely be following that. I know it, like I said, it impacts us greatly. The other situation that kind of impacts our community greatly is the recent exposure from an article written from the New York Times. I believe that everybody has kind of taken a look at that, and it basically exposed child exploitation, especially in factories and companies that are here locally in Grand Rapids. So it really does hit home. But I just wanted to know your perspective on that, just because I know that it seems like there's going to be a whole loop with the situation. We know that companies and maybe staffing agencies could be charged or receive any charges or anything like that. But what really happens if this problem kind of goes away for a little bit and then it keeps happening?
Well, let me just say, we all saw that article that was in the New York Times. I read it a half a dozen times over the weekend that it was released. It's a terrible situation when anyone is being exploited, let alone migrant children who are suffering the consequence of not only unethical, but illegal work practices. However, this is a very nuanced issue. And because of its nuance, I think that, to your point, this isn't something that isn't going to be forgotten, or this isn't something that will be forgotten. This is not that case, because there are so many leaders like myself and Representative Skolton and our Congresswoman Skolton, Representative Glanville, and others who have spoken out and have continued to reach out and work with our agency partners to ensure that there are not these situations being perpetuated here in Michigan. You mentioned that in that article, one of the prime examples that continued throughout that article was here in Grand Rapids. What I will say is that through those conversations, we recognize that there are multiple agencies that will have different responsibilities in this process, whether that be labor and economic opportunity or the wage and hour division, to ensure that people are not working in situations where they're overextended on their time, or that they're working with machinery that they are not qualified or age appropriate to be operating, or working through the night, for goodness sakes, right? Working through the night and then trying to go to school the next morning. That's not healthy for the child. And I expect that what will happen is that in coordination with federal partners and state partners, we're going to have to talk about everything from the immigration process itself to what happens to children who may be released to sponsors, and then also what happens when these children are working, because as outlined in that article, they want to send money home to their loved ones. This isn't about children shouldn't necessarily have the right to work, but it's that they shouldn't be working 12-hour night shifts. They shouldn't be working with hazardous machinery. They shouldn't be exploited at the hands of a corporation that is seeking to fill positions, because we all know that there are difficulties filling certain positions in this area, but that we need to make sure that those persons are held accountable to ensure that the people they have hired are in the appropriate workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned, it kind of goes in a lot of different ways. And it involves a lot of different departments, including the immigration one. That's something like the main priority, I think that would probably be a solution, but it goes back to that children shouldn't really be working those shifts and working with machinery that could, amputate them or do anything like dangerous to them. But at the same time, they have that necessity of sending money back home. And I believe that they're coming here to this country because of that reason, because in their home countries they don't have the potential to even live a good life or a decent life, a basic life. So that was kind of like what solutions do you believe you could suggest, I guess, for the federal level to kind of prevent this, because I strongly believe it kind of goes from back home, from their home countries, that they're having to do this, and maybe
Yeah.
even the people that their sponsors, they're taking advantage of them, but at the same time, I think they're a necessity too, so they kind of take advantage of that whole situation.
Yeah.
What solutions were you probably kind of suggest for the federal level?
Well, I can't speak for the federal level necessarily, but I will maybe start by saying I'm very respectful of Congresswoman Skolton's background in this area. She has a history of working in immigration law, and she is a great leader for this area on this topic specifically. And I trust her to do what is necessary in her capacity as our congressperson to represent us and to find solutions at the federal level. But at the local level, some of this isn't actually going to necessarily be a government solution. Some of it can be done right here at home. And so I am working with other local leaders, speaking with local agencies like the West Michigan Hispanic Center to talk about what can we be doing here at home to offer different opportunities for employment to these migrant children. What can we do to promote their employment, but in the right way? Is it through an internship and learning more? Is it through an education process where we explain what their rights are in the workplace? Because the workplace here in West Michigan might look very different to the workplaces that they were familiar with in their country of origin, right? The situations may not feel to be exploitative if the situations that they're accustomed to, again, in their country of origin were like that. And so I think educating people about what their rights are as an employee and as a worker, that is also something that we need to be doing here locally. And I think that those solutions are coming to fruition. I think those are going to become a reality. And I've made clear that my office is happy to be a resource to anyone in the district who may be having issues, and we can help to connect people with different services. That's what we want to be, as a connector. In case you want to put a banner or in the information, my office line is 517-373-0835. 517-373-0835. And they can reach out to my team anytime, and we would be happy to connect that and make sure that people have the necessary resources they have to ensure that they're working in a place that is following those guidelines.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, like I mentioned, this situation is probably going to be something in the long run, and a lot of work is going to have to be put um, in the background locally and federally. So I know that this is going to be an ongoing situation, but we appreciate the support and the way that you see things, because we know it just affects, especially the Hispanic community, So thank you so much for that.
I just want to point out, we are very conscious, right? We are very much thinking about unintended consequences because we know that people need to work, they want to work, but they also need to do it in a way that isn't in a way that they are being victimized, and that it is legal, right? And so you talked about ensuring that people who may have an underdocumented status or their documentation status is in question. We want to support those people too. And I think, again, our federal partners and our state partners are going to work to make sure that people are not taken advantage of on either side of this conversation. Okay. And so that is definitely something that is top of mind, that we don't want to have the unintended consequence of somebody losing their right to be employed or their opportunity to be employed, as this conversation continues to emerge with solutions. So I just wanted to provide that update as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was a main concern for us too. We understand that child labor is not okay. We understand that whole situation, but kind of exposing this impacts the other side of things and the adults in this situation. So thank you for mentioning that as well.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much for your time. I know that we were supposed to meet in person, but we appreciate your time here. Like you mentioned, we do have your phone number here, so it's 517-373-0835. We also have your email. I believe it's John Fitzgerald at house.mi.gov.
That's right. John Fitzgerald at house.mi.gov, and that email gets to us as well. So if there's somebody who has an issue, somebody who needs to learn more, who wants to voice their opinion on anything that they heard here today, they can reach out. We want to hear from you. And then, of course, you'll be seeing me in the community as well. I'm not in Lansing every day. I'm here in the community. I'm meeting with various people in the community, various organizations. And so certainly hope to see you around town as well.